Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I've been reading a really fascinating book, The Reformers and Their Grandchildren by Leonard Verduin, recommended to me by my friend Holger Neubauer. It really is a fascinating study of the transformation of the Reformation movement. Just some really interesting stuff. Nonetheless, welcome back. We have been studying the language of Matthew 24 and verse 36, where Jesus, responding to the questions by the apostles, they had asked Jesus, because he had just predicted the destruction of the temple, the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. And they immediately asked, tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Now, I cannot emphasize enough, all right, how important it is to realize how the futurist views of the Olivet Discourse, not just Matthew chapter 24, but the entire Olivet Discourse, are based upon the presupposition, the unproven presupposition, that when the apostles asked, tell us, when shall these things be? Follow Jerusalem. And what shall be the sign of your coming in the end of the age? We are told by 99% of the commentators that the apostles at this point were confused. They were ignorant. They simply could not, as John Calvin put it, to paraphrase, imagine the destruction of that temple unless it were to occur at the end of time. Now, listen to me. It is difficult, as I said, to overemphasize the importance of this presupposition. I've made mention to you, I've just finished, I'm waiting on my inventory right now. This is my proof copy of the assumption that the apostles were confused. They mistakenly, confusedly, linked the fall of Jerusalem with Christ's coming and the end of the age. Well, everybody knows they were wrong, right? That's what we're told. We are told the fall of Jerusalem, the coming of the Lord, the end of the age, had nothing to do with one another. So this belief in the confusion and ignorance of the apostles is fundamental to about 95, 98, 99% of the interpretations of the Olivet Discourse. But what if the apostles were not confused? What if they were not ignorant? What if the Bible does make the connection between the fall of Jerusalem, the coming of the Lord, and the end of the age? Well, in this brand new book, and my inventory is due in this week, and I'll be making a special video to tell you a little bit more about it, all right? But in this book, which I'm not aware of another book like this anywhere, I have searched the literature, and pardon me, while commentators talk about the apostles and their questions, once again, it is assumed that they were confused. Some, like N.T. Wright, sort of kind of hint at the fact that they may not have been as confused as modern commentators say, but they never developed the significance of that reality. And so in this book of about 170 plus pages, I am documenting, really beyond any shadow of a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, that the apostles were not confused, they were not ignorant. There was, in fact, biblically, a direct link, connection between the fall of Jerusalem and the temple and the coming of the Lord and the end of the age. Now, I say that because if that connection is biblical, solid, sound, and true, if the coming of the Lord, the judgment and the resurrection are posited as synchronous with the fall of Jerusalem and the temple, then I would suggest to you that all futurist views of eschatology are false. Most assuredly, all futurist views, all views of the Olivet Discourse, that it is a divided discourse, are thereby falsified. Now, I know this is recapitulation, but it's so incredibly important. Because if the apostles were not confused, then when we come to Matthew 24 and verse 36, when Jesus said, "But of that day and hour knows no man," he wasn't changing the subject from destruction of Jerusalem to his coming in the end of the age. He was just being more specific. They could know by the signs that he had given them when it was near, even at the door. They could know it was to be in his generation or in that generation, but they could not know the day or the hour. They could know, because of the language used, that it would be during the feast days. But you know, between the time Jesus spoke in Matthew 24:36 and 66 AD, hello, that's over 30 years. That is over 30 occurrences of Rosh Hashanah. And thus, they would have to see the conflation of all of the signs. In other words, before the Great Commission was fulfilled, they could know that the upcoming Rosh Hashanah was not to be the time. Once the Great Commission was fulfilled, they would know the time was near. They wouldn't know which one, because the Great Commission was fulfilled by 61, 62 AD, but there was still time after that, wasn't there? And so, to reiterate, if the apostles were not confused, if they were in fact asking about one subject, the destruction of the temple and the city at the time of the parousia and the end of the age, if they were not the ones confused, then when we come to Matthew 24:36, to reiterate, it is not the great continental divide of the Olivet Discourse. It does not change our subject or our focus from the end of the Old Covenant age to the coming of the Lord at some future end of the Christian age. It is a continuation. And so, in tomorrow's program, we're going to begin looking at Matthew 24:37 and following. And we're going to show that Jesus' discourse in those verses fits perfectly with the previous verses and the discussion about the coming destruction of Jerusalem. I'm going to be sharing with you a list of so-called contrast between the first section of Matthew 24 and the so-called second section. Now look, these are, quote, distinctions and contrasts that I once accepted as valid and true as proof that you have two subjects under consideration. But as I continued to study, I realized those aren't really contrasts at all. They are contrived, they are invented contrasts that will not stand up to examination. Now, in my book, We Shall Meet Him in the Air, The Wedding of the King of Kings, I examine an awful lot of these contrasts. And I prove beyond a shadow of a doubt there is no continental divide in the Olivet Discourse. You may want to get a copy of that book. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com. Go to the store, look up the book, We Shall Meet Him in the Air, The Wedding of the King of Kings. Order the book, send me a note that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. That will save you $5. Listen, I'll see you on the flip side.